Let's learn more about Airpocalypse. Airpocalypse is a compound word of air and apocalypse, according to the Financial Times. Just like the meaning of the word, human extinction because of air pollution is not just a worry, it is becoming a reality. What's happening in this scene? At dawn, when the visibility is less than 3 meters because of smog, 2 men were arguing in front of a factory. One of them had a camera. Who is he? A reporter. Who is the other man? An employee at the factory. It was an argument between the reporter, who accused the factory of producing smog and wanted to shut it down, and an employee who wanted to keep his job. This actually happened in China. What would you have done if you were the employee? What would you have done if you were the CEO of the factory? Read what's on the screen and fill in the blank with your name. I worked hard to become the CEO. Then I worked 10 years as a CEO and earned $20 billion in a year. But generating fine dust pollutes the environment. In order to reduce smog, the machines in the factory must be changed and purification equipment must be installed in the chimneys. It costs $10 billion to install the equipment, but it's a $10 million fine if the equipment isn't installed. What should I do? Let's think. What would you do? Would you spend $10 billion to install the equipment or pay the $10 million fine? Let's say this is not just a factory, but a large country. If you were the president, what would you do? For a long time, China aimed only for economic growth. In 20 years, China was able to do what took 100 to 200 years for Europe and the United States to accomplish. But since the 1970s, their efforts to force economic growth in a short amount of time caused drastic increases in water, air, and soil pollution. Since China has focused only on economic growth, they are responsible for half the world's coal consumption. 80% of carbon dioxide emitted in China is from coal. China ranks the highest in the world for both annual car production and new car purchases. Also, car fumes rank second in nitrogen compound emissions in China. Can the behavior and systems of these countries change? The benefit of dumping garbage is greater than reducing it. The trouble of not meeting the production targets is greater than being punished from polluting the environment. That's why we can't expect companies to voluntarily protect the environment. China's Ministry of Environmental Protection, Green GDP, announced that the cost of environmental degradation in China was about $535 billion in 2012, or 6.5% of the nation's GDP. This amount is about 40% of South Korea's annual exports. Eventually, there is no choice but to pay for the environmental costs. The later we respond to the environment, the higher the costs. The report, Costs of Selected Policies to Address Air Pollution in China, from the RAND Corporation, a research organization, estimated that addressing air pollution can cost roughly $500 billion when the air in China was clear in 2012. The report pointed out that neglecting environmental problems because of unemployment and economic contradiction leads to even further economic loss. Now, let's see how an air apocalypse began through the case of China. The number of early deaths in 2010 because of air pollution in China was 1.2 million. That's nearly 40% of early deaths throughout the world. Next is air pollution in Beijing. Basically, in standard air conditions, ultrafine dust rates are about 30 milligrams, and the highest record in South Korea is 160 milligrams. But in Beijing in December 2015, the density of ultrafine dust was 592 milligrams per square meter. This density is the level of poisonous gas, which is hard to breathe. Beijing issued a first-degree red alert of very serious pollution. More than 200 of 500 flights scheduled to take off and land at Beijing Airport were canceled on the same day. Also, a series of car crashes occurred because of visibility of less than a meter. Air pollution in Harbin, China. On October 21, 2013, the density of ultrafine dust in northern China was more than 1,000 milligrams per square meter. It's unknown if the fine dust measuring devices can actually measure a density higher than 1,000 milligrams per square meter, so it's still unknown how much it rated. That morning, citizens in Harbin thought it was snowing because they couldn't see anything. They weren't able to see the sun for several days. All the airplanes in Taiping Airport were canceled or delayed. Air pollution in northeastern China. The density of ultrafine dust here was also higher than 1,000 milligrams per square meter in 2013. There was terrible traffic because the visual range was shorter than 10 meters and some highways were even closed. And all the schools were closed that day. Air pollution in Jiangsu, China. The youngest lung cancer patient lived in Jiangsu in late 2013. She was 8 years old and lived near a major road. After that, the youngest lung cancer patient was a 2-month-old baby who suffered from unknown pneumonia. According to the World Bank report, only 1% of 560 million living in the urban area of China are breathing air that follows European Union standard. The mayor of Beijing said no one can live in the city in January 2015. We can live at least a week without water, but we cannot survive even for 5 minutes without air. People inhale 12 kiloliters of air a day. That's equal to 2,400 bottles of 500 milliliter water. This is the reason why we have to pay attention to the air so that the air apocalypse doesn't continue. Thank you.